Welcome to the Y'all Need Music podcast. I'm Matt,
And I'm Jesse.
and today we are here with special guest Drew Hale,
What's up, y'all?
and gonna run through some questions, talk about his life, his music, everything else like that. Probably be very remiss to not start with some of the biggest news. Probably last year's Tractor Supply Emerging Artist.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It's been an absolutely insane year. Mostly due to that competition. It was amazing. It was really, really cool thing. You submitted an original song or a video of you playing an original song, and 5 Nashville mentors sorted through thousands of entries, and each one of the 5 mentors picked one artist that they wanted to work with. And Lainey Wilson picked me and my song River Jordan, and it's kind of gone from there.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we've seen along with that, you got to play the Opry this past fall.
Yep, that was
right?
my first time on the Opry stage, October 4th. I won't ever forget that day, for sure.
Yeah, and then we got the opportunity to catch a performance at CMA Fest, at Old Red.
Yeah,
and that was all part of that too,
Yeah.
right?
It was. Yep. Yeah, that was kind of our debut in Nashville as part of the Emerging Artist Program, was doing the Old Red CMA show. We did one there, and then we did one with Lainey at the Bell Tower, I think, which was a show for her fan club. And so, I mean, gosh,
Okay.
it was cool.
We didn't get that one.
Yeah, that was my
it.
favorite show of that week, just because it was all people that are, I mean, it was all ages, but so many, especially young females there that are just getting so inspired by Lainey and what she's doing and who she is. It was just really fun to watch, man. And they ate up what we were doing. And it just felt really good to do our own music, stuff that we believed in, that's gotten us a little bit of success in front of a brand new audience. So it was a great week and a great experience all around.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we loved it. That was our first time going to CMA Fest. We're both hardcore concert junkies.
Yeah, man.
So I think last year we saw 60 some different artists perform at 70 some shows.
That's incredible, man.
So the goal this year is to beat that.
That's the dream right there, man.
My wife does not like it nearly as much.
No.
Do they come with y'all when you go to shows, or is it just you guys that usually go?
90% of the time they come with, but like we just saw Justin Moore in Mount Pleasant a couple weeks ago, and it was just the two of us. They didn't go. So sometimes, we'll go without them, but generally we can talk them into it.
Yeah.
They're not that hard to twist their arms to get them to go.
They love live music, but they're not thrilled about beating last year.
That's awesome, man. Of all the ones y'all went to, what was your favorite?
Oh, at CMA or for the whole year?
I mean, you said you went to 70 shows, man. So, like, was there one that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to, hands down for me, is Jamie Johnson.
Oh, he's so good.
And so
Absolute
we went
legend.
to that week of CMA Fest. We went down early to do it was like, if we're gonna go, we're gonna do all the stuff.
Yep.
And so he was doing a writers round, which we didn't even realize at first. I seen that Jamie Johnson was going to be doing a show. I bought tickets and asked questions later. And so it was a fundraiser for the Nikki Mitchell Foundation. And it was Jamie, Rob Hatch, and Ella Langley doing a writers round. And to me, like, I love writers rounds. I'm kind of a little more snobbish, I guess, in that way. Like, I love hearing about the music and the writing process, and it just feels way more intimate than like a regular concert does.
For sure. So, you get a lot more opportunities to storytell and give context to your songs when you do a writer's round than you do sometimes at a concert. People are paying for the entertainment when you play a big show, but when you get to sit down like that, it's just you and your guitar or whatever instrument you play, and it's just you and the song the way that you wrote it. There's something really powerful about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I love, and that kind of will take us into I had some questions in regards to the songwriting process, but for me, like, sometimes I've heard a song and it's like, oh, I'm feeling this kind of way about it, and then I
Mm-hmm.
hear how it was intended, and I'm like, well, that's not what it meant to me, but I can definitely see that. So from an artist's perspective, does it matter to you how somebody connects with that song if it's not necessarily what you had intended in that writing process?
For me, I think the greatest songwriters are the ones that can put their imagery in a song and have you come and listen, and by the time you're done, it's all your imagery. I think about there's a Kenny Chesney song, um, Anything But Mine, that I think of
Mm-hmm.
with this one. He's talking about kind of young love, and they're going to a carnival and whatever. And it's like in my mind, I'm picturing our carnival like growing up in El Paso, Texas. We had this Western Playland thing that was basically like a glorified carnival that was up all year. But it was a really
Nice.
cool, like little kind of small time amusement park, and I picture that every time I hear that song, even though
Okay.
it's his imagery. You know what I mean? So I think for me, the fact that somebody can take something that I wrote that's very personal from my life and put their own imagery, their own life inside of it, to me, that's a successful song. So it doesn't matter to me what people are viewing or what they see, as long as they connect with it. I think connection
Mm-hmm.
is the main goal for me. So it doesn't really matter to
Right.
me. Like my song El Paso Skyline, for instance, that's one that's
Yep.
incredibly personal to me. It's talking about my move from West Texas to Northern Michigan back in 2008, and it really kind of chronicles this it's like a homesick day. You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
even when you move somewhere new and you love the place you call home, you still have those days where you just kind of miss people and things and places that are familiar and that kind of made you who you were to begin with. And I've had so many people tell me that even though I'm talking about the literal El Paso skyline, the driving into town and seeing the Juarez, Mexico, the lights and everything, and I visualize that when I hear that song. But I've had people tell me I'm seeing my hometown, my football lights. I'm seeing my high school, friends that I
Yeah.
grew up with, and this song means so much to me. It reminds me of where I grew up, and there's very specific imagery in that song, and yet still people are able to connect their own things to it, and I love that. I like when a song that's very personal to somebody can become personal to someone else.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
I was watching one of the interviews or read one of the interviews that you did a while back, and you talked about
Yep.
how when you first started songwriting, that was kind of your diary, and you wrote down your thoughts and everything in there. And then as you started developing music and everything, you said that you saw a lot of people going through kind of similar things, that you were going through. So, you were kind of painting a picture and telling a story. And that's just super
Yep.
cool that, that's how you kind of, develop that.
No, that's the mark of a great songwriter to me. And the ones that I have the most respect for are the ones that can do that. Chris Stapleton's a great one.
Hmm.
When
Oh
he
yeah.
writes stuff, I mean, you can just put yourself right in the middle of what he's talking about. I've always
Hmm.
appreciated his imagery. He's one of my favorite songwriters. It's a crazy thing about music, how much you can say something and mean one thing, but somebody hears it and takes it in a completely different way, and it affects them that way. I think
Absolutely.
music is the universal language for a reason, because it can mean
Hmm.
anything to anyone, uh,
right.
and it's so personal. Even when it's not your feelings, you can still relate to that. And sometimes even
Hmm.
just the feeling that you're not alone in what you're feeling is huge. And I think so much of my songwriting over the last 2 to 3 years, especially, has kind of taken a turn towards mental health, which is a huge, huge thing for me, especially
Nice.
men's mental health. I think we have spent so many years with the stigma that men have to be tough, that you have to just, you know, pull
Yep.
yourself up by your bootstraps and keep
Yep.
going, and boys don't cry. And I'm raising three boys, man. I've got 11-year-old twins and a 12-year-old, and I still kiss my boys on the head, and I still scratch their backs to bed every night, and I hug them every chance I get. I tell them I love them every chance I get. I don't want them to grow up thinking that affection or emotion is not a good thing, or makes you unmanly. To me,
Yeah.
Sure.
the men that have made the
Yeah.
most impact in my life are the ones that were able to talk about what they were thinking, what they were feeling, were able to communicate that in a way that was healthy, that helped to bring people into a situation rather than push people away. And I think
Yeah.
so.
Nice.
I got goosebumps here because we've got
Right.
another podcast that we started.
Have you been on our podcast
Right.
before?
So we've got another one that's y'all need help, and so it's kind of a play on words because our wives are always like, "What's wrong with you two?" Because we have some pretty like dark kind of conversations and humor, but we on that one, so there's like some pretty racy stuff, but there's also like real life stuff where we talk about
A lot of helpful
relationships
stuff.
and stuff like that, and we've got a good friend who's always like, I'm a man, we don't cry. My family, we don't cry. And I'm like, listen, you're not a man, dude. Like, what's a man? A man is someone, I'll cry. You know why? Not crying doesn't make me tough. Me being willing to cry in front of other people tells you I'm tough, because I don't care what you're going to come at me with after that.
Yeah.
I'll still fight you.
That's
I'll
right.
punch you in the mouth if I need to. Like, I'll defend myself.
Yep.
But I'm still a man, and I can share those feelings, and I can have that emotion. And music is crazy in that sense of all the different emotions and healing and whatever you might need. Like, years ago I saw a sign that said that music is what feelings sound like, and that's like the realest thing to me. That you can sometimes you just need it. Like talking about Jamie Johnson, like In Color is a song that I fell in love with years ago.
Such a good song.
And my grandfather was in World War II, wasn't a pilot, but that song just like from the very first time just made me think of my grandpa. And like, when I've seen him play that live, and I've seen Jamie several times, I sit there, I don't even watch. I just close my eyes and just go to this place. And sometimes I cry, and sometimes I'd smile, and it's never the same, but it is, if that makes sense.
It is. It reminds me of, oh my gosh, what's the movie with all the emotions, Inside Out? Where you've seen that one where you have happiness and sadness, and they have these core memories that are all one color, and eventually you start to see them smack together, and the core memories have multiple colors. It's like you have some sadness and some happiness and some, it's like all of these, the more we mature, we find that like situations aren't necessarily happy or sad or angry. It's like sometimes, you've got these bittersweet memories. You've got these things that you feel that you're still healing from. I lost my dad back in 2016, and I wrote a song called They Don't Know to kind of help me process that, but it's like, I don't know, man. I think having this shared experience through music, I think that's one of the ways that we can knock down some of that stigma about mental health, because music can be a really healing thing. And I feel like, especially country music, I mean, this is where it's especially okay to tell stories and talk about emotions. If you can do it in any genre, it should be country music. I think that's why my writing has kind of started to move more in that direction, because I want to talk about mental health. I want to talk, try to remove the stigma that therapy and good prescription drugs, are. I'm not talking about abuse and stuff, but I'm talking about you going to get help from people that are qualified to help you, whether that's meds or therapy or whatever, and understanding that just like somebody who has cancer, you wouldn't look at them and say, why are you doing all this stuff to get, but you don't need this. Just pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You'll be fine. Stop being sad, that you have cancer. No, you're going to tell them to go get chemo. You're going to tell them to take their pills. You're going to tell them to do what their doctors say. So why aren't we doing that with mental health?
So on the other podcast, like my go-to is always diabetes. And high blood pressure, right? Like we all know somebody with one or both of those things. And it's perfectly normal to be like, oh yeah, I got high blood pressure, I got to take this medication, right? But there's this weird shame that I think is generational, unfortunately, with mental health, to address it and take medication. That I think that is shifting. I think it definitely takes more of us talking about it. I lost my brother back in August. Drank himself to death, and had been on medication for depression and quit taking it, went back to drinking. And, way too soon. I'm 45. He would have been 47. That's way too young to be dying because you're self-medicating, versus, worrying about maybe what other people think, getting the actual help you need.
Well, and that's the thing, man. You're going to medicate one way or another. So many people, you're either going to take meds that are good or that are prescribed, or you're going to self-medicate with weed
Yep.
or
Right.
drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, And if we don't take the time to process what we're going through in the moment and to process grief and to process that stuff, it's going to come out one way or another. If you do it when you can on your time, then you take care of it and it's done, and it's going to suck, but at least it's done. If you don't take care of
Right.
it in the moment, it's going to come out, and it's going to come out at the worst possible time, and it's never good,
Mhm.
Right.
And for me, that's songwriting is my way to deal with that stuff. So when you're talking about kind of how I use my songs as my diary, that's part
Yeah.
of how I stay healthy, and how one of my healthy outlets is songwriting. And I think, there's a lot of artists that I love that talk about this struggle all the time. Russell, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on his name here? Noah Gunderson is one of my favorite songwriters. Does a lot of talk about drugs and mental health. Rustin Kelly's another one. Does a lot of talk about drug addiction and talking about mental health and the struggles with that. And it's like, it can be really sad and really heavy material. But at the end of the day, man, if someone's not talking about that, then it just gets stuffed
Right.
back down somewhere. So
Yep.
for me as a songwriter, I want to be able to kind of let it out to a degree that people can say, hey, I felt that too. I understand what that's talking about. I've been there. And I think that is the power of music, is that it can connect people to that deep of a level, because we all struggle with that, whether we talk about it or not. So we may
Right.
as
Yeah.
well put songs out there that actually mean something and aren't just talking about picking somebody up in a bar at 2 a.m.
Yep.
Right.
Well,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was actually reading a interview that you did, and you kind of talked about that kind of thing, and how like you write lyrics for the human
Yep.
experience. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Um, and you're not just writing for radio plays or to sell. Your first goal was connection
Mhm.
with other humans. And that's just such a cool and powerful thing to do, of writing for others as opposed to for the radio play and everything like that. So super cool that, that's your type of
Yeah, and
lyrics.
that's a whole other conversation too, playing for the radio versus playing for, just
Hmm.
just writing something that you believe in, And I think if you really
Right.
want to have success in this industry, you kind of have to play both sides of the coin a little bit. I've got some songs on
Oh yeah.
the last album, Without a Net, that, I
Hmm.
are absolutely 100% just for the radio play. You know what I mean?
Right.
I wrote
Yeah.
those songs and I put them out there intentionally with the formula in mind, because I know people that love country music are going to love them,
Hmm.
But I also have on that same record songs talking about losing relationships because of alcohol addiction. I also
Sure.
have songs about putting yourself out there, with love, finding love, and feeling like you're a trapeze artist who's just let go of the rung and praying to God somebody another and catches you,
Right.
stuff like that, where it's, I have this philosophy that people will eat their broccoli if you give them dessert. So so on all my albums, there's going to be songs that are definitely more, just fun and, stuff you can listen to with the windows down.
Sure.
But there's always going to be that gut shot talking about things that really matter. Because if I'm not doing that, I feel like I'm not doing my job, and that's not who I am as an artist. Is that type of stuff. That is what
Hmm.
I want to be doing, And eventually, I think I'll probably get to the point where that is the lion's share of what I'm doing, is talking about more about the things that matter rather than pandering to the radio, which everybody has to do a little bit. But,
Awesome.
and I
Yeah.
still enjoy playing those songs. When I play them live, I mean, honestly, for live shows, stuff like Great Lake Summer Night, stuff like Made for Summertime, stuff like Drunk in a White
Yeah.
Dress, like those are all songs that when I play them at shows, I mean, people love it and they have a great experience. And that's where we're talking about the difference between songs for live shows versus, songs that you put on a record for entertainment value. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
Right.
love playing those things live, but playing those also, it's almost like you use songs like that to gain that trust and that relationship. It's like you're building a relationship with your fan base, give them stuff
Hmm.
that they can enjoy, that they can feel good to, and then, start working in some of the heavier things. And it's like, after a while, they understand that who you are is both, because of
Right.
course,
yeah.
man, summertime in Northern Michigan, hell yeah, I'm going to be in a boat somewhere. We're going to be cranking some tunes. We're going to be,
Yeah.
beers
There
and
you go.
bonfire. And I'm all about that stuff too, just not to the exclusion of what matters.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
along those lines, that was one of the things I was curious about, because I'm not artistic uh, at all.
At all.
When writing those different types of songs, right? Is it something where you just go there mentally on your own? Like you could be sitting in a room and just go there, or is it, hey, we're hanging out outside having a bonfire and like this conversation then strikes up something song wise? You know, do you have to be in that moment, or do you go back to that moment?
You know, I think the only real way to answer that question is that every song is a little bit different. Every song has a particular personality. Every song has a particular, um, you know, origin story. You know, Great Lake Summer Night, for instance, is probably my most popular
Great
song. It's
song.
gotten a lot of radio play, and people up here love that one. It kind of, you know,
Resonates.
it wraps up that
Easy to relate
summertime. Well, I
to.
mean, it's what summertime is up
Mhm.
north. It personifies what we do up here, you know. So it's a connection thing, you know. And but that one, I had this little riff I was playing on a mandolin for a while that I couldn't figure out what to do with, and I loved it.
Nice.
But then I got to thinking about, you know, I put myself in these positions musically when I'm writing, because writing for me is it's also a job. You know, aside from being what I love to do, it's my career as well. So I have to make myself sit down and write on a regular basis. Number one, I do that because I need to keep material out there, but I also do that because that's my outlet. You know, so if I'm not
Mhm.
writing, I'm not healthy, and I can feel myself get unhealthy if I'm not writing. But that one, you
Okay.
know, is an example of a song that I was like, you know what, I want to do something that connects me to summertime in northern Michigan. So I started to sit down and think about what are all the things that summertime means to me. I wrote it in the middle of winter. Like it wasn't it wasn't like on a
Nice.
boat. It was, you know, I was getting ready to, we were going to record an album that May, and I had just won the Country Showdown earlier that year. And, you know, so I
Mhm.
was kind of trying to figure out, what do I want to put on this record? What, you know, this is kind of I had had one album before that, but, you know, it was more folk singer songwriter driven. And this was my first country album. Roots and Wings, my first country album. So I wanted to really make a splash and really wanted to find that happy medium between playing country music but also being from northern Michigan. So
Mhm.
I kind of wanted to write a summertime anthem. So I sat down and literally just started listing these things that I love about summer, that everyone up here loves about summer: TC Whiskey and Oberon and bonfires and, you know, riding the
Nice.
Jeep with the top off, that kind of stuff. And it just kind of flowed
Mhm.
out. And that ended up becoming this huge summertime hit for me up here.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
it was just because as a songwriter, I try to um, give myself challenges. Like, I want to write today. I want to write something that's more poppy. Today, I want to write something that's more like Zach Bryan. Today, I want to write something that is
Mhm.
heavier. Today, I want to write something that's more fun. Today, I want to write, you know, I just kind of give myself a direction. And every once in a while, I'll get struck. You know, you get these lightning strikes of inspiration, and I'll sit down and
Genius.
write. You know, or I have this folder on my phone that is just, I mean, pages and pages and pages, and I scroll all these song ideas. You know, I'll be listening to a song on the radio and I'll think a line says something, and I realize later, oh, it says something completely different, but what I heard was really cool.
Mhm.
I'm going to take that and use it, you know. Or I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a melody in my head, and or a chorus line or something. So I'll wake up and put that down. So I think it's an equal amount of inspiration versus perspiration, you know. Um, because it is it
Nice.
is it is a job for me too, you know. So I have to continue writing. I can't just wait for the lightning bolt to strike every time I want to sit down and write.
Mhm.
So I've gotten to the point where it's like, if I don't have a song I'm currently working on, if I'm just writing from scratch, I'll pick a theme, or I'll pick a line that I've
Mhm.
written down and just start thinking it through and go for it and sit down. And sometimes I'll even sit down and make myself write lyrics without music that are just lyrics. John Mayer I
Okay.
heard him talk about doing that as a exercise, as songwriting exercise. So I started doing that too, you know. And one of the songs, I'm about to do a Dogtown session, and you guys familiar with Dogtown Studios in
Yeah.
Grand Rapids?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I did one with them a couple of years ago. I'm about to do a brand new one, kind of in support of the album I'm recording right now. And one of the songs I wrote there, I wrote with one of my songwriting students, and it really just started as it's called "Love Us Both," and the idea is, you know, I've dealt with, you know, really struggled with self-love and my self-image for most of my life. You know, I've always been kind of a bigger guy, you know. It can be really tough to feel like am worthy of attention or worthy of the spotlight or whatever, just because of my looks. I've been turned down for record labels. I've been turned down for booking agencies because of my looks, because of what I look like. And so that part, as well as just some of my mental health struggles. I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 this past year. So working through some of that, it really kind of separates you from other people and make you feel like you're too difficult to love sometimes. So this song was really talking about the idea that, you know, I have these people in my life that just love me for absolutely no reason, just because they're great people and they love who I am. And it's like, if they see something in me and I trust them, you know, maybe the whole idea is, maybe if you love me, I can learn to love us both, you know?
Right.
So that's kind of the concept of that one. And that one really started as it was just a line, love us both. And I kind of had a little bit of a concept, and it sat in this folder for months before I needed to write something. Neither one of us, I basically have a writing session with her once a week. And she's been working with me for like 3 years now. We sit down and sometimes we'll have a song that's in process, but we take turns coming in with song ideas. So it was my turn to come up with something. I'm like, hey, how about this? And in 2 sessions we had the song, like it just flowed right out.
Nice.
You know, but that was one of those ones that just started from just a concept and kind of blossomed into this song that I'm incredibly proud of, and I can't wait to put it down. But that's one of the ones I'm going to be recording at Dogtown next month. So I'm excited about that.
So I think this is a perfect time talking about yourself and, you know, your self-love and the struggles with that. I've got a little something that I want to share with you.
Cool.
So I happen to know somebody that knows you pretty well. And we've not discussed this at all prior to this. So I'm kind of blindsiding you here with this.
Okay.
So I reached out to this person and I said, hey, listen, you know, we're going to have him on the podcast. And, you know, from your standpoint, tell me something that maybe not everyone knows, but you think they should know. And so this is verbatim from that person. I'm going to read this to you. So my eyes are going to be off the screen.
Okay.
But the person said, I think that something people might not know, but should know is, I gotta make this bigger real quick because it's not.
You know, got his glasses on.
Dude, I can't read anything if it's not right in front of me anymore. I'm getting too old for this.
All right, there we go. I think something that people might not know but should know is how humble and kind he is. Genuinely, even though he is has his incredible voice, and the first thing that draws you to him, getting to be his friend is where you really see him shine. Drew is someone who shows up for those in his life with grace, understanding, loyalty, and the most acceptance without ever asking for anything in return. So that is what people who know you say about you. And I thought that it was perfect timing, just talking about that self-love and the things that, because I struggle with that stuff too. I'm a big dude myself, and I've had people like Jesse on more than one occasion has talked about what a great guy I am, and I'm always just like, stop. You know, because I can't accept that well. But I think it's important, and I've been working on that myself. I think it's important for us to hear those things when people, you know, think so highly of us. And so with that being said, you know, what role does your friendships and your fans that you kind of get to know a little bit better, what role does that play in your music?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't do what I do without them. There's a circle of people that have been coming to shows for several years now, that have kind of all gotten to know each other. And they come out all the time. Like I play at this place in Traverse City called North Bar every Thursday night. It's my only like weekly,
you got like a residency there.
Yep. So I'm there every Thursday night, and this crew has been coming out for the last couple of years. I mean, at this point, there's like 30 of us, and almost all of them came down to Nashville when I played the Opry. Like
cool.
They all, I mean, separately, and like they made plans on their own and like got Airbnbs together and like all just had this big caravan there, all had signs and shit holding at the, it was great.
Right.
Nice.
It was
Nice.
incredibly humbling. And so many times I have gotten to a show where I am just burned out, because I'm a working musician. I'm not up there doing, 70 shows a year that are all sold out stadiums. I mean, I do lots of headlining gigs, and we've sold out 3 shows in the last year at Encore 201 in Traverse City, and we sold out one in Elk Rapids at their town hall this year. So little by little things are getting bigger, but I mean, oftentimes I'll play to an itty bitty little room to 10 people. It was so funny. I played the Opry in October. It was a sold out crowd. What did they say? It was like 4,400 people that we sang to. And then the next day I played this little like whiskey room out in Franklin for 20 people. And
Nice.
and then I come home and I play one of my favorite wineries up here, Rova State. Played there, and it was, it was a decently full house, but I mean, a decently full house is like 50, 60 people, and that's like shoulder to shoulder packed in. Right. So, sometimes it's like it can just be a grind after a while. You know what I mean? And I'm on my way up, and I feel like things are moving, and there's lots of momentum, but I'm still doing. I'm still just the working musician most of my days, teaching lessons and playing gigs and that kind of stuff. So sometimes I'll show up to a gig and I'm just fried, raising 3 boys and having a family and owning a business and all that stuff it can be exhausting. I know you guys know how that goes. And I'll show up to a show and I just don't want to be there. I mean, I'm tired and it's the last thing in the world I want to do. And my people show up and all of a sudden everything's okay. Nice. There's been so many shows where I wouldn't have made it had it not been for them. And so they've inspired not only just my musicality, I feel more comfortable when they're there. And so often the songs that I do that become popular because they've told me, hey, I really like this one, or hey, I really like this one. I'll send them new stuff all the time to just listen to, and hey, tell me what you think. I'll play it live, and then they start to have their favorites of these new songs that nobody else has heard. So that gives me the confidence to know, hey, I really think this song could be, if these people like it, I think this could work for a wider audience, or this one was really personal for somebody. I think this could work in this context. My people. I mean, honestly, they're our family up here. I don't have family in Traverse City or in Kingsley, just my family, my immediate family. But like, we don't have grandparents or brothers or sisters or cousins or anything. We're kind of on our own up here. So we've kind of created our family, and all 3 of my boys are adopted out of foster care anyway. So, we've had the conversation with them since they were little that family is it's a family you choose, you love who you love. And if you want somebody to be family, they can be family. And so we've kind of created our own family unit up here. Made from people that we've just gotten to know through coming to shows. So I would say it's a huge deal to me to have those relationships. And honestly, that's to me what sets us apart from a lot of the other local and regional national acts, is that we have just spent so much time building into relationships with people. That's more important to me than anything. I love playing music, but if I don't have people in my circle that I can bring up with me, what's the point?
Absolutely.
Nice.
We've talked about that. Jesse and I mean, we've had so many like multi-hour long conversations with him and his wife here at my house. They'll come stay with us. We'll go stay with them. And we met just a couple years ago at Faster Horses, kind of just
That's awesome.
Nonchalantly sold a couple of campsites that I had extra that year to some other people. And we hit it off and just had this great connection, and have turned into best friends in, a matter of 2 years time. And
it's crazy at this stage of life how that happens.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden I feel like it's so hard for guys to make connections as it is. So it's like when you find a guy that you're like, dude, I'm going to be friends with you. We're going to hang out.
Right.
Well, and it works. It's weird too, because at this stage in life, we have wives, right? And you got to have both parties and the couples have to like each other. How many times have, your wife had a friend and you really didn't care that much for their husband, or you've got a friend and they don't really care that much for their wife. And our 2 wives are very similar, like him and I are. So we were super lucky in that sense that they're both like, you guys want to get together? Yep, let's do it.
Awesome.
So it works.
Want to go to a concert?
70 times.
Right. And part of that obviously was music, but the other part of it is, we've had those deep conversations that oftentimes guys don't have, and we're constantly like pushing each other to do better, and like you can do like cheerleading for each other, like we're ready to break out pom-poms type of thing. And it's huge. Like I quit smoking 3 weeks ago.
Good for you.
And I've been smoking for a long time. And so he's been right there, like, you got this, you're doing good, you got this. And I've still been kind of supplementing with some nicotine pouches and a vape here and there, just to kind of like make it a little bit easier. And I know that he's in my corner, and at the end of the day he knows that I'm in his corner. So having those relationships is huge, no matter what you do, whether you're in music or not. Absolutely. And I think that music just makes it that much better.
Yep. Well, it's when you have this universal thing that kind of keeps you in common, it's a lot easier to have other interests too. When music is just this huge thing, and it's like music is, to me, I've met people that have said that they don't really care for music that much, and I've never not resonated with a statement more in my entire life. It's like families that say they're not, we're not a big food family. Like
right.
What do you? What do you do when you hang out?
My youngest son.
Right.
My youngest son. I told him before, like, I'm pretty sure like you were swapped at birth with somebody other than he looks just like me, but he does not like music at all, any genre at all. And I've tried I've had him listen to rap and jazz and blues and rock and heavy metal and ska and punk and reggae. Like, something has to connect with you. Nope.
Something has to resonate.
And I'm just like, I don't know who you are. I don't, it's like such a foreign idea to me that I
even, like, somebody told me the other day that they don't get songs, they've never had a song stuck in their head. They don't know what that would feel like. I'm like, all day, every day. Like, I wake up with songs in my head and I'm humming constantly
all the time.
Like, my kids are the same way too. Like, they're not even biologically related to me, and they're still, they walk around humming all day and get songs in their heads and like get super into different. I'm like, I can't even fathom what it would be like to not have music in my life. Like,
sure.
What else is there, man? Come on.
That would be like not having coffee.
Yeah. Ooh.
Forget it. I'm done.
From me.
Nope.
That's it. Just take me out right now.
So, in that realm, I was curious too, because we're big concert junkies. I want to go to live music every chance I get.
All the time.
I love the way, like, to me, that's the biggest stress relief, to be there with the crowd. You get their energy, you get the music, and it's just like everything washes away. Is that still the same when you do it for a living? Like, do you get enjoyment out of going to a show, or is it like the old adage when you're in high school and you love Taco Bell, but you get a job there, and then it's like, I don't want to go to Taco Bell?
I'd have to say it really depends on the concert. I still love live music, especially local live music. Like, I'll go around on all my nights off and try to find my friends wherever they're playing. And especially my wife loves live music so much. So we try to go and find people to listen to as often as we can. We don't do a lot of bigger shows anymore. I think we're going to go, Wyatt Flores is doing Rock the Lot in Grand Rapids at the Intersection in July. And I think we're going to go to that. But at this stage, a lot of the concerts that we want to go to, I just end up opening for, you know what I mean? So like, so many of the festivals that I play at or whatever, we go and see live music because I happen to be playing at a festival or at a concert or something. So, we don't do a lot of bigger shows anymore, especially festivals. Like, that's just a lot of people. I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed as I've done this. I mean, gosh, I've been doing this 10 years full time now on the road, and 10 or 12 before that as church music and that kind of stuff. I've been doing music for a long time in places where there's just a ton of people. And I think the older I get, the worse social anxiety is for me. So it's like being in these giant crowds full of people. I walk in and it's just like, I find a corner, grab a beer and sit in a corner and watch people, so like stuff like Faster Horses, and that kind of stuff. It sounds like a lot of fun, but I would rather be behind the stage. Like I'll go and I'll play that stuff and hang out that way, and
Mhm.
see friends and whatever, and then I can go back to my bus or back to my camper or whatever. But
Right.
I don't know, man. I think anything where there's that many people at this stage, I probably am not super into. But I do love like smaller venues, going to see Music at the Intersection in Grand Rapids, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
going to the Arc, or going to the Machine Shop. The kind of like
Oh, yeah.
mid-sized venues. I still love
Yep.
those shows because there's so much passion and so much rawness in shows like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're not big, overproduced national touring stadium acts, where you have to take up half the gym floor with lights and fire, and
Right.
and someday, sure, I would love to be able to do that, but I don't know. That stuff doesn't really impress me anymore. I spent most of my life at a 25,000 member mega church in El Paso, Texas, and played, to a 4,000 seat auditorium since I was 18 years old. That's kind of where I cut my teeth. And
Mhm.
I just, the big productions just they don't really do it for me anymore. I would much rather, like you said, I would much rather find a writer's round, or, go to like East Nashville and listen to some music that isn't the top 40 Broadway crap hits from every band on Broadway. And I've got friends that play Broadway and I love them. They're incredibly talented, but like I steer clear of that stuff, as
Mhm.
much as I
Mhm.
can, unless I'm going to see a friend play. I love music, but I think I'm looking for more real and raw at this stage of my life than overproduced and big, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Eh, that's right up the alley with, Matt and I, same thing. I mean, yeah, we went to, last summer, went to
Mhm.
70 some shows, that was kind of like a challenge and everything. And of course, we went to CMA Fest and saw the stadium shows, and those are cool and everything. And yeah, you have the big light shows and the fire and everything, and it's more of like an entertainment, just to see kind of some of those acts. But I think Matt and I both same thing. We would much rather go to somebody like such as yourself,
Yeah.
on a smaller stage. It's more intimate. I just think it's more raw and passion, and
Mhm.
and that's what we really get into, is seeing some of the smaller acts and up and comers, and get to see them like that. So that's just way better than seeing somebody on
It
a
is. I
big
mean, even
stage.
Well,
even Chris Stapleton at his stadium shows now, it's still him, and it's still raw, and
Right.
it's not big, overproduced, flashy everything. It's just
Hmm.
a Chris Stapleton show. It's not a production, and I think
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
yeah. So years ago, we
Absolutely.
used to like the big thing was to get up as close to the
Yep.
stage as you could at faster horses.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
over the last several years, my wife has anxiety for one.
Mhm.
So that's part of the problem getting her to go to shows sometimes. It's like, but there's
Hmm.
people there.
Huh.
And I'm
Yeah, what
like,
do you mean? There's
yeah.
other people. Like
Right.
I can listen at home. It's
And
fine.
and I'm the opposite because I'm like, I love people. I want more people. Let's go, people. But we've
I
like
wanna
pushed
be where the
back.
people are. Yeah. Like,
So we sit back out in the grass a ways out, and we've got our little group of friends and we lay in the
Hmm.
grass and just, watch it, hear it,
Chill.
like
Right. Dance,
have a
chill, grab a
yep.
drink, just
Yep.
kind of hang out.
Yeah, I'm a
but
lawn seat kind of guy. Like, I want
Yep.
to be close enough where I can actually hear a good mix, but I want to be far enough that I can see everything that's going on. I want to be able to hear
Right.
everything and observe. Like, I spend most of my time at shows studying. Like I'm watching what they're doing. I'm listening to the
Mm,
transitions. Listening to the arrangements. It's tough for me to just go and enjoy a show. I'm always
sure.
picking things apart, and I can't help it. Like at this stage, it's just what I do. I go and listen to
Right.
music, and I listen to everything.
Hmm.
yeah. Well, I've been fortunate enough to see you a couple times other than Old Red. And we try not to like dog on any artists ever music wise. We do have one exception. Uh,
Yep.
um, but at any rate, I seen you perform before at a venue, and I'm not going to mention the other artists you had opened for or the venue because I'm not going to give that away. But I'll tell you this: we were there with a fairly decent sized group of friends. I think there was 8 of us. We stayed for your entire set, 3 songs of the quote unquote big name artist who was the headliner, and we left.
Hmm.
This person sounded horrible, horrible. And, someone on their team had mentioned that it was, the venue's acoustics. And it was like, nope, that's bullshit, because Drew Hale sounded great and it's the same acoustics. So let's try again. So obviously you're doing something right when you're picking the stuff up, because we would have just assumed had you come back out and not feel like we wasted our money on a headliner that we left for.
Well, I appreciate that. that. We work really hard to make our shows and our tone and everything. I mostly play with a trio for that reason. It's simple. It's easy to mix. It's simple arrangements. We can read off each other really well. And it just simplifies things. There's not a big production when we play. It's just real and raw. And what you see is what you get. That's just who we are. That's who I am as an artist.
Nice. Yeah. With your band, I just wanted to kind of know, was that like a group of guys that you met in Northern Michigan, or did you bring them from El Paso? Like, how did you kind of meet up with them?
Nope, it's all guys I met up here. Yep, it's everybody that tours with me right now, with the exception of, I've got a couple of musicians down in Nashville that I use from time to time, but most of my guys up here are either guys that I met playing at churches. Like my drummer Justin, we worked at a church together for years, and we played on their worship team for years and just got to be really good friends doing that. And then I started gigging, and he started playing with me, and he's been playing with me ever since. Nice. And he when we did our first big tour of Texas and the Southwest back in 2016, we added on John Richard Paul, who's my mostly full-time bassist. He's also a singer-songwriter and does his own thing. So I don't get to play with him as often anymore. But when it's the three of us, I mean, that's kind of as good as it gets. We can kind of do anything we want to do. And I've got a couple other guys that'll trade in and out, other drummers and bass players that'll, and so every once in a while we'll add a fourth or fifth member if it's a big enough show. We did a show at Coyote Crossing in Cadillac last year. It's one of my favorite places to play. It's just this awesome great venue. Outdoor venue. Yeah. They have a killer sound system, a couple hundred people capacity, and we always pack it out, and there's dancing down in the front and bonfires and cool spot. And that place, we will occasionally, like last year, John Paul did his set and we were his band, and then he flipped back to the bass and then played them. So it's like we kind of got to use the same band. And so we added like a pedal steel player and a lead guitarist and an extra vocalist. And so once in a while we'll do that. But for the most part, I just really appreciate the rawness of a trio.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely.
So a couple of things that I wanted to touch on, and I know we're going to have to wrap up soon, but I wanted to cover these just because of the direction that music is going right now. One of them being, Jesse and I have talked several times about the days of a artist putting out a full-length album. Are those days coming to an end because we're in such a right here, right now, because of social media and stuff like that? Is it going to go the direction of EPs and just singles versus putting out a full-length project just to stay relevant, because there's so many people, coming at you from all directions?
I think there's a lot to be said for keeping content out regularly. But for me, I will always be an album artist. I always think in context of putting out a cohesive album that flows from track to track, with content that flows, that makes sense together. I don't know that I can write any other way. So, I mean, I will put out a single from time to time, but usually when I put out a single or an EP, it's going to be for something that's going to be on a full length album eventually or later on. So I'll kind of sometimes do things one song at a time and kind of record it one song at a time with the intention of making it a full length album, and then just in the meantime release things. But I think for me, I'm always going to write an album. That's just what I do. I've got 3 in the can ready to go right now that are all content wise and things, I just got to find the time and the money to record them. So I think Nashville is really pushing hard for people to just put singles out regularly. But to me, and I get it from, to some degree, because it's like you want to keep people engaged in what you're doing. But at some point, I feel like people don't really get to know you as an artist when you're just putting one song out at a time. The artists that I came up knowing and loving and just became lifelong fans of, for instance, Jimmy Eat World, for instance, my all-time favorite band. They have 10 albums. I've got everything they've ever recorded, EPs, singles, all the old stuff. But I fell in love with them because of the way that they would put their albums together and the way that it's like they create this experience in 10 or 12 songs. And so that's kind of what made me fall in love with them. And so that's, to me, that's how I want people to get to know me. Like I want time, it's like, I love film, I love, like, Guy Ritchie's my favorite director, but I've really gotten into this new thing where people are doing like limited series, because you'll get way more of a story in 8 episodes rather than having to cram it all into a 2.5-hour movie.
Right.
And to me, that's the same thing when you're writing an album. It's like, I have a little bit more time to give you context about these stories. I really feel like I don't have to just keep it to all my radio stuff to get people hooked and then just keep them hooked all the time. Like, that's exhausting. People are going to either listen to my music or they're not, so I want to make sure that what I'm putting out there is stuff that I believe in and stuff that I feel like speaks to people on a larger scale than just typical bro country. You know what I mean? So, So all that to say, I think Nashville is pushing to kind of do the single EP thing. But to me, the pendulum always swings back the other way. We're going to go all this way. Everything's going to be digital. But I mean, there's a huge resurgence of vinyl right now. So many artists are out on vinyl. So it's like the pendulum is going to swing back the other direction, where people are going to be hungry for that raw, tangible thing. So I'm not going to stop putting out albums. I'm not going to stop putting out hardcover CDs. I may not print as many as I used to, but there's going to be that need and that want from people for something that's just tangible, and not just on their devices.
Yeah.
And that's just my 2 cents. But for me, that's how I kind of come at putting music out there.
All right. Nice. So the other like modern music problem, if you will, that I wanted to touch on is AI. Tennessee just recently passed a legislation to protect artists' voices from being used, improperly with AI, which I think, even I'm not an artist by any means, but I fully support that. Like, what you do, what you put out is your voice and your songs, and that has to be protected for you.
That is
just
the
same as
It's like, it's, we're in this day and age where you can't trust anything you see online. You can't trust anything any video of anybody talking. You can't trust that. That's not, there's so many filters where you can look like anyone you want or sound like anyone you want. You can have a computer write up a script that sounds perfect and have it read it in somebody's voice. AI can write an entire score, a classical piece for you in a matter of seconds. And I think it's a great tool for some people, but I feel like, haven't we listened to the movies and the stories all the way since the 60s about artificial intelligence? Like, and now it's happening, I'm not a fan. I think there are some ways that it can be useful, but as humanity, I don't feel like we ever stick to the useful things. We always find a way to make it get us more money and power. And that's at the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of AI, to be honest. I would prefer real music from real people played on real instruments.
There you go.
Right. So the second part of that, though, would relate to writing. And you hear stories, as long as I've been listening to music, of artists that started working on a song, writing it, and I started this 6 years ago, 8 years ago, and just now finished it. Right. What would your thoughts be on putting in, you've got your chorus and maybe the first verse, and you're just stuck on where to go from there. Do you put something like that into AI and see what it tells you for, verse 2?
I feel like that's cheating to me. As someone who has spent my life trying to grow in the craft of songwriting. I mean, for instance, River Jordan, the single that I wrote that Lainey picked, that was a 6 or 7 year labor of love for me. And I wouldn't trade a single moment that I wrestled with that song, because it's exactly what it needs to be. And I feel like if I would have tried to get a tool like that to write it for me, it wouldn't have the same meaning to me, and it wouldn't, it's
right. It's not real.
Sure. Well, it's the same concept to me. I think when, you make your kids work for something rather than just giving it to them, like, hey, earn the money to buy this yourself, and it'll mean a lot more to you than if me just giving it to you. You're going to enjoy it either way, but it will mean more to you. And I feel like that's the same thing with songwriting and music. Sure, you can use all these computer tools to make these perfect, polished, packages, and anybody can make music now, which sure they can. Everybody can make music, but not anybody can be an artist. It takes more than just computers and tricks to be an artist or to really reach people.
Well, that's always been my philosophy, so to me, an artist is somebody who can write, who can play at least one instrument, and can sing. And
Right.
you kind of got to be that full package, which, obviously you are. But that was a conversation that came up with my wife and I, and it was like, I wonder if artists are doing that, how they feel about it, and would there be kind of an asterisk like in baseball with steroids, right? Like this song
Barry
was
Bonds.
written by, Matt Jones
and AI,
right? Like who gets the songwriting credits at that point?
Well, that's the thing. At what point does AI get the respect of being real and being treated as another human, because it is a creative entity? So with that, you know what I mean? It just, there's so much gray area with all of that. Just fucking learn how to play an instrument and like write a song. Like take the time to actually build a craft and grow at something. Don't just take the easy way out for everything. I think our culture is, everything is convenient. Everything is the easy way. Everything is, how can I get this done the quickest and without having to give anything of myself, energy or time, or it's like, anything worth having is worth working for. Anything worth having is worth struggling through, and for me, I wouldn't want it any other way, because I've spent, the last 40 years of my life loving music and learning how to write and learning how to communicate in a musical fashion. And I'm not willing to give that up.
Right. I love that you say that. And I think that's what it is this generation, like you were saying, just always wants the easy way out, with so many different platforms. They can pump out a song, upload it to YouTube, TikTok, any social media, and it's there and it's ready, but they're so reliant on those types of tools that, what's going to happen,
what happens someday when all the power grids go out and there are no more computers, or, there's,
absolutely.
what are you going to do with music then? What are you going to,
I'm
still going to be able to play music and write music and do what I love, whether there's a computer or a sound system or not. And I think that's the difference between me and a lot of these artists that are using that stuff as part of their craft.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know for us, we're way bigger fans of, if I hear you on the radio or I hear you on one of the streaming platforms or something and I go see you, I want to hear that sound. I want to hear
that raw,
maybe a little bit more unpolished, but like I don't want to hear a completely different person. And that's happened before with a number of artists, because they're auto tuning or they're doing whatever, to change it. And it's like, that's not what I wanted at all. And we'll leave. And that's what we did with the other person that you had opened for. It was like, no, that's not,
we played a show down in Grand Rapids a few years ago for a national act, and they did a pre-concert thing where people, like a meet and greet, and there was like an acoustic show. They got to come in and he played 5 or 6 songs acoustic, and every single song he had to tell the engineer in the back what key it was in so he could use the auto tune in that key, and used auto tune live for a solo acoustic show.
Oh no!
Ouch! That just hurt.
I mean,
that hurt.
And listening to him sound check without it was painful. And like I don't know. There's a lot of people that enjoy his music, and I wouldn't ever fault him for that. I enjoy some of his songs, but that was enough to show me that that's not who I want to be.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, and that's what we love. We love going to, like I said, the smaller venues. We love seeing, we went to the Intersection a month or so ago to see Jackson Dean and this gal that neither one of us, knew about prior to that. Mae Estes opened
she's
up.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Phenomenal.
Yes. So great.
We changed our Nashville trip around because she's playing the Bluebird tomorrow night. And I've been to Nashville so many times, but never been to the Bluebird. It's just, we're always going here or going there, or this show or that show. And it was like, no, we're switching this up. We're gonna go see her at the Bluebird. I've always wanted to have like my first time at the Bluebird be somebody who I really wanted to see anyway.
That's how you do it.
And it was just her and a guitar at the
Yep.
intersection by herself, just raw.
Just
And
raw.
it was
I love
like,
that.
oh my God, this is phenomenal. And so we're going to see her tomorrow night at the Bluebird Cafe.
I wish you all the best of that. That's
you
going to
know,
be a good show, man.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And that to me is way more important than going and seeing somebody who's got 20 number one songs, but they've never wrote one themselves.
Yep.
Not mentioning any artists in particular, but
right.
There's quite a few of
them. You know, I want to see that. I want to see the people. It's kind of like college sports used to be back in the day, where athletes were hungry and they were out there just
Actually
like grinding and giving everything they've got for their love of what they're doing.
And honestly, I think that is why Lainey Wilson is skyrocketing the way she is. She has worked her ass off to be where she is, and she's putting out music that she believes in. She's writing and she's recording her own stuff, and she's got a message that is empowering. And I think that's what we need. And she's the real deal, man. Like, listening to her live and being behind the scenes with her, she's one of the most real, down to earth people I've ever met in Nashville. And that's the kind of artist I'm trying to be, somebody that loves their craft and is working hard at it and is trying to inspire people along the way.
And we didn't touch on this.
Right. Yeah. I think that's why she, chose you, watching some of those interviews and everything like that. She knows that you're the working man musician. You're out there grinding every day, pouring your heart and soul into it. Just like she did when she was coming up, in Nashville and everything. So,
which I so appreciated, and I'm incredibly grateful to her and to Tractor Supply for giving me that opportunity. There's a lot of stuff I wouldn't have been able to do without that. So, I mean, that was a huge springboard for what's going on now and the things that are happening this next year. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Lastly, on that note too, just because we didn't touch on it, was that a period of time like, hey, she's going to be a mentor for you for X a number of months or year, or was it for like a short period and then like whatever happens after that happens?
I think they called a mentorship. It wasn't as much of a mentorship as it was just a connection. We really the only the only mentoring sit down that we really had was in front of the cameras for the TV special. But I have her number and we talk on a fairly regular basis, and she'll call to she texted to check in. She was in Australia. She's like, hey, we haven't chatted in a while. Catch me up. How you doing? And so we'll probably talk to each other, I don't know, a couple times a month, and it's just at this point, just kind of keeping the connection, talking about kids. I'll send her whatever music I'm writing and just kind of tell her that I'm proud of her and that I'm watching what she's doing. So I think the idea was for it to be for a year, from like last June to this coming June, but it'll be an ongoing friendship with her. And I think that's at the end of the day, I think that's what they were trying to do, is to give us these connections with people that can, maybe answer some questions or help us get a foot in the door with things, or at least having her name tied to my name has really helped in building a fan base. So many of her fans have come and followed and started listening to my music just because of her recommendation, which I'm incredibly grateful for. So I think in that way, it was more of a bolster to what I'm able to it gives me a little bit more to work for. Like, I get a little bit more bang for my buck as I'm working, just because I've had her name on my music for the last year.
Right.
Absolutely.
And on that note, we're getting ready to wrap up here, but I just want to tell the fans and the listeners, what do you got in the works? What's upcoming? I know that you got like a residency at North Bar in Traverse City. I saw that it's like through May 30th, I think. But what do you got going on there?
Yep. We usually go through Memorial Day there, and then we switch over to I kind of do a weekly rotation in the summer. I'm out at Lake Ann Brewing every other Thursday, and I'll be at Middle Coast Brewing on the alternating Thursdays throughout the summer. and then I usually get back to North Bar in the fall. So my Thursdays are usually pretty, I'll be somewhere every Thursday, and then my weekends. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
how about
I'm either playing in town, bigger things on the weekends, or we're traveling generally.
Okay.
At least once a month.
anything outside of Michigan for the listeners that, you know, might not be in northern Michigan? Any tour dates or anything?
Well, we do play. We've got 3 more dates in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We do kind of a 3-night residency at Tequila Cowboy in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
We're doing that in April, the end of April, and then we're back there in September and November. I'm in Nashville about once a month, so I try to get down
Oh,
there
okay.
to do writers rounds and write and make connections and
Nice.
that kind of stuff.
Yep.
We also we're talking to let's see, I'm doing a writers round in Grand Rapids at the end of April, and then the same group is going to
Oh,
do
okay.
the same round in Lansing and Detroit over the next couple of months. I'm doing one in April
Oh,
and then a
nice.
couple in May. There, I've got a whole bunch of other random shows that we're playing, festivals and that kind of stuff. Summertime is usually like festival season, so we do lots of concert series and
Right.
festivals. So I will be around northern Michigan primarily, but we will be traveling some.
Okay.
Like I said, to Pittsburgh, Chicago. We're going to be down in Lansing and Detroit. Yeah, so we're traveling quite a bit.
Okay.
And best place for people to find you, Facebook, drewhale.com.
Yeah, all of our socials, you can find us at Drew Hale Live. And we're in the process of getting our Facebook merged back over. We got hacked a couple, I guess, last winter, and somebody took
Yeah.
over our page, and so we finally got it
Oh,
back.
yeah.
But they changed our handle around, so fun times. So we're working on
Right.
that. But people can find us all over social at Drew Hale Live, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all the things. So there, as well as drewhalelive.com. And all my music you can find on all the streaming services, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, all that stuff. So, you know, I appreciate people listening and checking me out. You know, this is
Absolutely.
what I love to do, and this is my full-time gig. And so any support I can get is incredibly helpful, and I'm grateful for.
No, and
Yeah,
we appreciate you
absolutely.
coming on, and
Yeah, love having
definitely
you on.
encourage all the listeners or viewers to give Drew Hale a good listen and you
Check
know,
them out.
scope it out. I mean, to me, like listening from like the earliest songs till now, you get a pretty wide range and see some growth. Obviously, see the role the church played in your life through your music too. And so it's kind of a cool thing to kind of start with the earlier stuff and move forward and just watch that progression occur through the music. So make sure you guys are following him on his socials, checking him out on the streaming platforms.
Streaming.
More importantly, buy his stuff when you have the opportunity.
Appreciate
Because
that.
it pays
Yep.
him a lot more than the streaming's going
It
to.
sure does. We'll have a whole
Right.
bunch of
Go
new
see
merch
him.
out at shows this summer. So yeah,
Yeah, go
out.
see him at live shows and spend some money with them.
Appreciate
So
that.
thanks again for being on,
Yep,
Drew.
thanks.
Having me.
And you know, that was our pleasure. And for everyone
Absolutely.
else, we'll catch you next time on
Y'all Need Music Podcast.